Hi paper crafters, this is Robin from Robin's Creative Cottage. I wanted to share with you today a card that I had made a few weeks ago and put on my blog, and I was hoping to get a video done, and I'm finally getting to that video because I wanted to show you how I made this card. And I used the 4-inch doily die from my craft spot, and I made, instead of cutting the image, I decided to make just an impression with that, and I wanted to show you how I did that. So let's get started. I'm using my Cuttlebug today to go ahead and make my embossed image, and what I like to do for my sandwich is I use the A plate, the B plate, and then I use something called a tan embossing mat, and that's what this is, a very flexible piece. And if you just Google tan embossing mat, then you can find there's several stores online that carry these, and they're fairly inexpensive, so they're fun to have. So I go ahead and just lay down my embossing mat, and then I have then you'll put your piece of cardstock down that you're going to emboss on. And to start off with, instead of using the 4-inch doily die, I'm going to go ahead and use the tiny doilies. This comes from the tiny doily metal dies available from my craft spot. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just lay this upside down on top of my piece of cardstock. And then the next part of my sandwich is I'll use my B plate. Now every once in a while, it's always good to check your embossed image to see if it embossed deep enough for you. You don't want it to emboss too deep, because if it embosses too deep, it can cut through your paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and run it through my Cuttlebug, and it doesn't feel very tight to me at first, so I'm not sure how well the impression is at first. Oh, actually that's not too bad. So if your impression is not very deep and you would like it a little bit deeper, because every machine is a little bit differently, so what I would suggest that you do is I like to use just a piece of very thin printer paper or typing paper, and what I do, I use that as a shim. So I know it's very thin piece of paper, but even that little bit just gives it that little bit of a lift. So if you need to do that, I just lay an extra piece of paper under there, or two if you need it, 2 pieces of type paper. I think if you go with a piece of cardstock, that would be too thick. So a piece of type paper is what I like to use. So again, just grabbing a green piece of cardstock, and I'm going to get my 2 tiny doily dies here, and I'm just going to lay them on there. And so again, I'll grab my B plate, and then I'm going to run it through my Cuttlebug. Okay, so again, that pretty much embossed pretty closely to the same as what I had before, but that looks great. So it's really fun to do an embossing technique with your metal die instead of always just cutting with them. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? So going over that technique again really quick, I have my A plate, my B plate, my tan embossing mat, and then I want to lay my cardstock down that I'm going to use. This piece of cardstock is 5 1/4 by 4 1/2. I'll lay it on my tan embossing mat, and now I have my 4-inch doily die, and I want this to be just a little bit off the page. Instead of centering it, you can center it, you can put it wherever you want on your paper. Even a little bit off is fun, because I'm going to be cutting out the inside circle with one of the metal dies. So I'll just place it right there. B plate, run it through the Cuttlebug, and there I have my gorgeous embossed doily. Isn't that fun? So what I'm going to do with this piece now is I want to cut a center out. And I'm going to remove my tan embossing mat. I don't need that anymore. So now I'll just go ahead and lay this down. And I am going to take one of my doily dies. Now instead of cutting out this shape, I just want to focus on cutting the outside edge. So I'm going to lay it right in the center of my doily. Now this time I'm going to grab my C plate. Okay, so now I've just cut a hole inside the center of my doily. And you can actually save this piece to use on another project if you would like. And that's how you emboss using metal dies. These metal dies and stamps can be purchased from my craft spot. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a great day.